What up, what up, what up?
What's happening with you, man?
Welcome to Religiously Incorrect Podcast.
Yes, hey, we should have moved our clocks up ahead of time a lot sooner. We'll be on time more often.
We'd be on time more often. We're really off time, but I'm glad that we both made it. I needed to get my hour back after church, though.
Man.
I got my hour back.
Yeah, I'm good and tired.
Absolutely.
Hey, Mariah, how you doing?
Y'all tap in. Be sure to like and share. You know what time it is. It is time for Sunday night service, and we got a blazer today. So make sure you tap in. Make sure you tag somebody. I want to see some names I've never seen before pop up as we bring to you Religiously Incorrect.
Brought to you by the African American Community Fund. The African American Community Fund, established in 2020 at the Foundation for Appalachian Ohio, supports Black-led and Black-serving organizations throughout the 32 counties of Appalachian Ohio to elevate the quality of life and address disparities in African American communities. Check them out at www.appalachianohio.org/AACF, or you can call them at 740-753-1111.
I'm so glad to have the African American Community Fund as a sponsor. We appreciate you guys. Thank you for the t-shirt shout out. I do want to shout out Patty Elkins from Second Baptist Church, who made these Black History shirts. I ordered this one this year. There are so many that do a phenomenal job.
I like that. Is Patty on right now?
She might be. Sometimes she tunes in.
I know she'll be tuning in, Patty. If you're tuning in, I would love one of those.
You want to get one?
Size 12X or something like that. I don't know. At this point, it's just keep on going up.
Depends on which holiday we fall after. You know what I mean?
Wow.
Depend on which. That is comedy. But we're so glad that you guys joined us. All I have to say is kudos to Uncle Joe.
Uncle Joe.
Or as I call him, the Right Reverend Bishop Biden. Because my man preached Thursday night.
And it's sad I didn't get to see it.
You didn't get to see it?
I didn't get to see it, but I heard he done his thing, man.
My man, he even had a clothes and everything. His clothes was "I see a future."
What?
I mean, the brother had a melodic clothes.
He called Barack.
No, he called Warnock. He called Warnock and said, "How do I?" I mean, he literally said, "And I'm about to finish." All I heard was, "And as I take my seat." But my man came out fiery. He came out swinging. He came out, he took his B12 shot. He drank an Inshore. Listen, he took not a Viagra, but Uncle Joe came out. Man, he probably did go home like, what now, Jill? What now?
I ain't mad at Joe. I had 5 closes today.
I
don't never have a whole lot of closes.
Did.
Today I was like, this is a long service.
I usually have 2 at least. But he came out swinging. If he was attempting to display that he had the energy and the virality
looking for
to serve, at least the energy, even if you don't agree with his policies, you can't argue with the energy he portrayed, and he did. So are we good? Are we?
No, we good. We good.
Okay.
What's the matter?
I was talking about the speech, man.
Oh, what about the speech, man? What do you think?
To me, it was like he did good. Don't get me wrong. He did good. He did excellent.
But
everybody was happy because he didn't fall going up the steps and he didn't pass out halfway through.
What else do you expect?
So I'm saying the bar was set kind of low.
Okay, and Trump's bar is what? That he doesn't say the N-word or say something offensive about the Jews in his speech? I mean, the bar is low for both of them.
True that.
Both parties are like, don't mess this up for us.
Right. Trump, stop trying to sign Bibles and you can't say the names of the books of the Bible.
Yeah, don't do any of that.
2 Corinthians.
Yeah, right. 2 Corinthians. I think both of them, which again, I forget what somebody called this election something. I think it was like, whether you like it or not, election. Like, because none of us genuinely like the choice outside of the most extreme Trumpers. But nobody else really likes the choices we have. I don't like the choices we have. But if the bar is that he not fall over or keel over, he met it, he cleared it, he jumped it several times over.
He done hurdles.
He did make a few missteps. He made a few missteps. And of course, the new thing about the State of the Unions now is that you could just guarantee, especially if there are Democrats in power and the Republicans are on the floor and the Democrat is the president, they're going to scream out at him. And that happened several times.
We have every other watch party, Super Bowl watch party. Let's have
State of the Union
watch party and just break the whole thing down.
We just go live during the State of the Union and talk about it. Because it is, I mean, it's interesting to watch.
To Timothy.
It's interesting to watch, but, he has to call out all these people. The one thing about State of the Unions or any speeches is you just promise everything.
Yeah. Oh.
You just promise everything. Like everybody's getting a spaceship. Why not? Why not? We're going to conquer Mars. He literally said we're going to cure cancer. He literally said that. Which, I know that things are advancing, but for real though.
Right.
We're going to cure
after 1 million people dead already.
He went back to the January 6th thing. He talked about that.
Well, that's a good. That's a
back.
way to stoke the fire.
He said, "I'm going to remember." He said, "We're not going to let you bury the truth." He went into that.
Okay.
He said, President Reagan, a Republican president, said Mr. Gorbachev, which he couldn't get the word Gorbachev out, but as a fellow speech impediment person, I understand. And he's 1,000 years old, so It is what it is. He said, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall, is what Reagan said. And he said, Trump said to Putin, do whatever the heck you want, which he did say. Mm-hmm. He did actually say, do whatever the heck you want. So, it was energetic. I thought it was too long. Him being older would have been a great chance to give an energetic speech that was like 40 minutes instead of over an hour.
It was over an hour.
It was over an hour.
Wow.
And Trump's known for giving long speeches too. And y'all talk about preachers being long. They need to put some caps. It needs to be a 45-minute cap on State of the Union addresses. And then a 15-minute or 10-minute rebuttal, which we need to talk about that. Did you see the rebuttal?
I didn't. I didn't watch it.
The rebuttal was literally scared white woman who a black person's about to break in their door or an illegal is about to kick their kitchen door in and kill them. This lady, I wish we had a clip. We should have queued up a clip.
Yeah,
this lady spoke, and I'll try to give you some of it, with so much high school drama club emotionalism. She was like, and at the border, illegals are running over. She was so dramatic. It was automatically, everybody immediately said, this is about to be an SNL skit. And it was. It was so over the top. And she would say like horrific things while trying to smile. She was like, and they're going to rape your children. And we're like, what? We're like, what? It was so cringy. And she kept like just floating between emotions. And yes, the worst acting ever. And again, and they had her in the kitchen. It was so funny because they had her sitting in her kitchen. Like a white, I'm a white housewife. I'm a mom. I care about my kids. But I'm sitting here like, you probably got an abusive husband in the next door talk about my pork chops better not be cold.
Don't you want this, the white picket fence?
So, but they said that almost undercut the Republican message that, if you want to show that you're really for everybody, all you did was throw women into a kitchen. But they have had I really think you shouldn't even do rebuttals at this point or responses or whatever they call it. Because honestly, you're getting enough. Like, for instance, doing a rebuttal, and it was so terrible. Just look it up on Twitter, look it up on Facebook, look it up on Twitter. You will realize they would have been better off not even doing one and just rip apart Joe's speech. It's like you're better off leaving their words out there to be criticized than to leave yourself liable.
Well, that's what I would think a rebuttal is. I would think it would be to tear apart the speech and break down a speech and parts that he may have said that were untrue in your opinion. Right.
So. And there were some parts of that. And one thing that one commentator brought up, and I listened to a podcast the very next day, was that this is definitely the Trump line, and those who support Trump, is that it is completely doom and gloom. Like everything it sounded, for her to be smiling and laughing and then crying, and then, I mean, it was ridiculous, but everything was negative. There was no hope, no plan, no policy, proposal, nothing. And I think that that's going to be, and we're going to talk about this a little bit later with our subject tonight, but that's going to be Trump's angle, and that's going to be those who support Trump's angle, and it's going to be that because it's effective. Everything is bad and everything is falling and everything is terrible is a great way to get positive support.
Oh, absolutely.
Which is unfortunate.
Absolutely.
And it's true in the church too.
As if you changed a lot when you were in the White House.
But I'm just saying, it's the equivalent to me of fire and brimstone preaching.
Oh my God.
Everything's bad. Everything's a sinner. Run to the altar. Run to the preacher. We'll make it all right. And like no hope, no balance,
right?
No real practical solution for life. And she definitely portrayed that. I mean, for the first time, and it takes me a lot to get on X or Twitter, or whatever we call it now. It takes me a lot to get on X. But for the first time in a long time, I went back to trolling people and like commenting on what they said. And I did it all night long. I posted, I kept yelling at the screen, if you're in danger, blink twice. And then I responded to her own post and said, you oversold it, sorry, but congrats getting cast in the This Is Us reboot.
Wow.
Then I asked, what else did I add? Katie Britt looks, her name was Katie Britt, looks and sounds like she calls the police on black teenagers on a daily basis. She looked like the girl shouting "Goodbye Jews" in Schindler's List.
Man, you was on the roll.
That was my favorite one.
I like Marlon's comment too.
What? She was speaking like she was snitching on her black barbecue. Yes, she was giving ultimate Karen. She was like fifth level Karen.
I definitely got to watch her tomorrow.
But you could tell they said that she had an audience. It was not us. The audience was other people like her that feel the same way and don't mind that over dramatic, over exaggerative type of language. And so I say, if Uncle Joe can give us this type of fight and energy through November, he has a shot. Absolutely. He has a shot.
I think he has a shot.
I think he has a shot. I just think that crazy. If you guys ever seen Schindler's List, that little girl is shouting "Goodbye, Jews." There's a comic bit about that, like, what is it like for little girls to have to audition for that?
That would be crazy.
Because it was like a 9-year-old girl screaming "Goodbye, Jews," and he was doing voices. It was hilarious. He's like, and then you find the most cruel sounding kid ever.
Real quick, because I know we got to move on. Real quick, speaking of coming out swinging. Is this fight between Mike Tyson and that dude
and
a
Jake
real
Paul?
Fight?
Is
this
Jake
a
Paul?
real fight?
As far as I know, it's real.
It's real.
Mike Tyson like 79, ain't he?
He is 57.
Yeah, 57.
Somebody said it just right. This is literally the Nintendo Punch Out. Mike Tyson versus Glass Joe. That's literally. But I mean, it's going to be youth versus age.
But I mean, the big complaint about Jake Paul was that he never fought a real fighter. You can't. I mean, obviously you could say Mike Tyson is a real fighter. He was heavyweight champion.
But he's 57.
He's 57 years old. You're still not a real fighter yet.
Now, there's nothing I'd like to see more. And we'll have to talk about this when we get closer to the fight. We might have to live stream that and talk about it.
That would be
There's
fun.
nothing I'd like to see more than Mike Tyson knock this dude out in the first round. And I mean clean out. But I fear that it's going to be an exhibition style situation. Now, what I want is somebody to tick Tyson off and he turn back into Killer Mike again. I mean, like, I'm ready to go to jail. I have nothing to live for, whatever. Because that was the guy that was destroying these people.
Listen,
that was the guy.
Have you watched him practice?
He's practicing.
He still look like he
okay, let me give you my best Iverson. Practice?
Nah.
But he's a sparring partner. The dude, the job is to make him look good. They were not going to put out a video of him looking slow or missing punches or getting tired. You know what I'm saying?
All I know is those punches look like they hurt.
They might. It's easy to do
but
that.
You get in the ring with them.
When they're not punching back?
You get in the ring with them.
I'm not saying I belong in the ring with them. I'm just saying that it looks good when you're sparring with the person who's not hitting you back and who's just showing off your speed in a
Jake
90-second clip. Yeah, Jake Paul's from Ohio.
Is he?
Yeah.
In Ohio.
From the east side, even down the street. He live on Burton.
He must be down there with the he must be what's your comedian friend name who from Ohio?
Which one?
The one dude I hate. Dave
Chappelle? He's probably from down there.
Dave Chappelle, Ohio.
You hate Dave Chappelle, man.
Horrible. He's horrible.
You hate Dave Chappelle.
He takes too long with his jokes, man.
Those are the best ones.
His punchlines is like 10 minutes. I'm like, man, I forgot the beginning of the joke.
Listen, I can listen to comedians that tell like 15-minute jokes, man. You know what? It is not even on the subject. We have to talk about this another time. We need to get like a Christian comedian on here. I listen to comedians because it helps me speak better. I listen to comedians on a regular basis because it helps me speak better.
How? Explain.
Because they have a sense of timing and enunciation and the use of words. There are people that can make a word sound funny. The same words that we say. So it's like, how do they do that? You just listen and trying to get it into, and it's made me, besides listening to some great pulpiteers and podcasts and all, I listen to stand-up comedians. Certain ones that I believe, and some of you know who they are. I don't really talk about who they are, but they are very observational, long-winded, storytelling, but the way they speak gives a different dynamic than the old school black. And so if you mix that up, I think there's some great stuff there. That's just a little.
He's definitely different than the old school because Richard Pryor just said what the heck he wanted to say.
Right. Just call everybody N-word, F this, F that, you know. But I mean, I just feel like that's a part of my secret sauce that I'm trying to grow and learn in. So, hey, we appreciate y'all comments. Tonight we have a phenomenal show, but you already know what time it is. It's time for Meme of the Week.
Meme of the Week. Meme of the Week.
Welcome to Religiously Incorrect, ladies and gentlemen.
Meme of the Week. Meme of the Week.
Thank you. Send us your memes of the week.
Meme of the Week. Meme of the Week.
We are, these are all jokes. We are just playing. All right, so y'all know that in a couple weeks, we got about 4 more weeks left.
3 weeks, Easter's coming, buddy.
Easter is on its way.
Get them pink
and
suits.
You know how you had to get your Easter speech together.
That's right.
One of the hardest times of the year to get, and most of y'all only got Jesus wept.
Oh, right. He went to the grave. Right.
But pastors all around the world are making sure that their kids,
that the children know.
And here's one right here.
Here's one.
You.
Today's lesson is about resurrection. Does anyone know what resurrection is?
If you have resurrected more than 4 hours, you need to go see the doctor.
And he was confident.
He's watched that commercial way too many times.
No. He's raised by his grandparents. He's raised by his grandparents. And here's how I know. I'm not assuming that he's heard that from his grandparents, but what you just said, he's watched that commercial too many times, but that commercial would only come on shows that grandparents would watch.
Yeah, that's true.
They sit there and watch CNN on 24-hour cycle.
He said, if you have a resurrection
for more than 4 hours, you need to call a doctor. And he was so kind. He put his hand right up, turned to the camera, and said, I know this. Now, we all know that eager kid in Sunday school that has all the answers. Me, knew all the answers. And he knew it. He couldn't wait to say it. And the look on the face. Play it one more time. And this time, don't pay attention to what the kid is saying. Pay attention to the preacher's face. Pay attention to his face.
Today's lesson is about resurrection. Does anyone know what resurrection is?
If you have resurrected more than 4 hours, you need to go see the doctor.
His face turned. He said, we've all had resurrections. I love it. Kids say the darndest thing.
They say the darndest thing. Yes, they do.
They say stuff, boy, in church. It's funny. But, hey, you live and you learn.
You gotta learn.
Not only does he know the story, but he also knows what to do when he comes of age. What better way? Hey, y'all keep telling us the church needs to be more relevant.
That's relevant, all right.
Y'all keep telling us that we need to connect with these kids. He said, if you resurrect for any time, see the doctor. Yes, I love it. I love it. Well, we're so grateful to have sponsors for Religiously Incorrect. We can't do this for free. And so we want to give a big shout out to the Phillips Family Care of Businesses, Phillips Care Lawn Services. This little bit of snow we had, probably about all we're going to have. You might as well make your plans for spring cleaning, get your cut schedule ready, let them clean up the branches, all that stuff. Give them a call at 330-219-7916. Hey, they've been in business for over a decade. They know what they're doing. Y'all need to stop messing up Marlon, my copy here. I'm trying to.
I ain't even saying that.
Early. All right. While you're doing that, check out Phillips Cleaning Service. They do residential. They do commercial, floor cleaning, upholstery, move in, move out. They even do carpet cleaning. I'm a satisfied customer. I mean, we only kept it clean for like a month, but they did a great job of cleaning the carpet. They will do all types of renovation and repair work around your building or business. So again, call 219-7916 or look up Phillips Care LLC on Facebook.
And we are so excited to be sponsored by Action, the Alliance for Congregational Transformation, influencing our neighborhoods. Listen, we are super excited because Tuesday we hold our annual banquet. Listen, I think it's going to be great. One of our guest speaker, the guest speaker is the incomparable Pastor J.P. Robles. He is some type of preacher. Listen, I think we might be sold out of tickets, but we still taking them anyway. So
Rose will let you in.
We gon' if you got money, you can come.
And we'll go to like that steakhouse we was in Cleveland where they set up folding tables on the side and put a white cloth over it.
We gonna put you somewhere.
Yeah.
We gonna put you somewhere. So
give you a to-go plate.
Get your to-go plate. I think it's gonna be a phenomenal banquet. We're excited to sponsor, and we're excited to continue to do the work in the community that you've called us to do. So thank you so much, Elder Rose Carter, the whole our president, Pastor Todd, our whole Action board. All of y'all done a great job. We're just excited. So look forward to it. I know y'all gonna get ready for 1 million pictures on Facebook.
All kind of pictures.
On Tuesday night.
All kind of pictures. I'm wearing my good suit, Doc.
Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir. I got one. I got it.
Jeff be wearing these 9-piece suits.
You crazy.
Man, come on,
what
man.
What 9-piece suit I got?
Bro, you got a 3-piece of biscuit, Oreo cake. And a sweet tea. Lord. No, he knows how to bring it, man. You know, Jeff and Tiffany, they definitely know how to bring the fashion. They definitely always do it. So
Rose said you can get your ticket now.
Get your ticket.
Cash App her now.
Cash App her right now. Zelle, PayPal, whatever you want to do. Black Planet, whatever you, MySpace, whatever you use.
We giving them Todd's seat. Todd ain't gonna have a seat. I ain't gonna have a seat.
We gonna be standing on the wall.
Everybody gonna be standing up.
We gonna have servers aprons on by the time she get done. So come on out. Come on. Well, Pastor Jeff. The talk of the week. Is yet another Christian celebrity saying or doing something controversial.
These are the only times I hate that we have Sunday night service. We want to get to it because our stuff be so good.
We're always late, but we get to have the last word.
That's it.
We do get to have the last word. We had the last word on William Murphy's swag surfing, and we're going to have the last word on Tye Tribbett. The church is in an uproar. Uproar. Because, here's what was said. What was said that he said, because we know we play the game of telephone.
Right.
Tye Tribbett said the church is whack. And how dare he? First of all, how dare you use a word like whack in the year 2024, the year of our Lord, using a word from doggone House Party 2. Why are we using
not kidding
the word whack? Because High Tops made a comeback and whack did too. But in his comments in an extended interview on The Breakfast Club, and we're going to qualify some of this because obviously, as it is the case with everything, there is a whole interview with a lot of commentary, a lot of discussion, a lot of actually wonderful things shared and said, but some clips always tend to be plucked out and go viral. Kind of like the Bible, you just kind of take something.
Take what you want. Cut the rest of it out.
Walk through the buffet and do what you're going to do.
And I would advise y'all not to just look at these couple.
The little
clips.
short clip.
It was a lot of good stuff.
Wiggity, 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 whack. Wiggity, 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 whack.
Not crisscross.
Wiggity, 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 wiggity,
Jump, jump.
Listen, he went all the way back. He knows our generation. He knows our generation. So what we're going to do is play a longer clip than normal. But we want you to see in context, and this is not all. He had a lot of great things to say. Right. He did not get up there and just go scorched earth and tear people and things down. But in the opinion of a lot of people, some words should not have been said in their minds the way he said them, and to whom and what platform he said it on. And that's where this kind of started to go haywire. So Big Mike, let's play that, and let's give some context.
To do or be in life.
But what do you think about some of the? It seems like for a while, maybe the last 10 years, it seems like being a pastor was cool, right? So it was like everybody wanted to be a rapper, everybody wanted to be a podcast host, and it seems like a lot of people wanted to be a pastor for the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that?
You missed that era, the pastor era?
I don't remember the pastor era.
You don't? Man, it was building them huge churches. Everybody was. I think the pastor phenomenon came from. Oh man.
Getting money in the
say
church. It's a bunch of different things. You can speak to it more, but I think getting money in the church and how you look and how you're praised is, and you forget that he's supposed to be praised, but how they praise you and all that type of stuff. So yeah, I see a lot of Instagram pages out there, but you know it is what it is.
You killed it. You killed that whole thing. I think a lot of pastors were not called to pastor. They just, study, you go to school, and then you just become a pastor, like you become a manager at, Publix or something like that. And that's unfortunate for a lot of people who invest their, money, time, attention, and their soul into people who they believe are literally called from God. I don't believe a lot of pastors are. I think it's a system now. Oh God, it's a system. Everything is a system, and systems work with or without God. So I think the institution of church is whack. I think how church is ran is whack. I think the religious system and structure is whack. I don't subscribe to it, even though I grew up in it. I benefited from it, but I learned that God is not the church. And once I realized, whoa, God ain't church. That for me, you know what I mean? I ain't from the streets, I'm from the church. So that was a huge thing as well.
It's in the Bible, though. It says you can't even find God in a man-made temple.
Why don't we read that, though? How often do you hear that sermon? No, you hear pastors make the people about the church. We got the church name, we church and the bumper sticker, the church. The church should be about the people. The church should be about the people, but the church makes the people about the church. So all churches now are a movement, but they're not about the people. They're not about serving and loving the people. So I just kind of pulled out. We're online right now. We're not even in a building, a physical building or nothing like that. So Live Church, shout out to Live Church. I love y'all so much. Live Church Orlando, we're online right now. And because we had an issue with a building. And now I'm like, hold up. What's going on here? Like, do we need you understand what I'm saying? Like, in order to do what we need to do, affect people, serve and love and minister, I'm just looking at everything differently at this point because the church structure has really, there's a lot of people who won't even go to church, obviously. When the last time y'all been to church?
I go every Sunday.
Okay, not you.
But no.
He goes on TV.
I go bedside Baptist.
So there was a little bit more to that clip, but it was a good. That would get him right. That would get him right. Slapped with a wet dish rag. And Pierre, why he got my mama's brooch on? Give Miss Janice, give Mother Osborne her brooch back. That brooch is whack.
So you can see by that why the Christian community is in uproar.
Yeah.
And I think, and I'm just going to put, because if you watch the rest of the interview, he did walk it back. He did walk it back.
In what way, if you can give us a little context?
He said, I know a lot of people right now saying the church is whack, and they're saying, Tye, you was just at my church last week. You was just preaching at my church last week. He was saying, I'm not saying the church itself. He said, I'm saying the systems of the church.
Okay, well, the system got him invited to that church.
Absolutely.
Too.
I'm not.
I'm gonna go there later.
I'm not agreeing. I'm just saying he tried to walk it back.
I get
and
it.
I think a lot of times we say stuff and we put it out there, and then we try to walk it back, but it's already out there. Especially in this age of social media,
right?
It's already out there. And so I totally agree that churches are not whack. The church is not whack.
Now, keep in mind, he didn't say church is whack.
Right.
So the question is, do you agree about institutions and systems? Do you think that's whack?
I think, here's what I think. I think there are some systems and institutions that are antiquated, not whacked. There are some systems and institutions that need to be changed, need to be updated, need to be rethought, need to be redone, need to be, I don't know, for lack of better words, maybe the ordinances need to be changed because some things are really just outdated.
Okay.
And so, but that does not make them whack.
Right.
Because most of these churches have been around a lot longer than most of us have been alive.
But that is the nature of anything that's been around, is that you inevitably become something that is seen as stale and staunch and stuck. And what happens is, and we're a part of this camp, we are still fairly younger pastors in the Christian world. We're younger. We still all meet the younger set and will for some time. And we have definitely been that far more radical side of things than we are now, because we've been institutionalized, apparently, But what I'll say is, it's all well and good until you become the institution in some way, form, or fashion. You hang around long enough to get seen as out of touch, out of date. You don't understand what kids want. You don't. Oh, I'm so glad you said that, Leah. I can't wait to tag on that. As a matter of fact, I'll tag on it right now in a second. But what I'm saying is, it's a situation where it's easy to say that when you are not fully ingrained and involved in all the things and understanding of why it is what it is.
Right.
And to Leah's point, which I was going to point out, if you know Tye's story as far as his church is concerned, he's a fairly newer pastor. I don't think he's been pastor for more than 5 years, I don't think. And he had a building that he essentially lost to a sale. He was having service at an auditorium at the Holy Land amusement park in Orlando, and it got sold to a hospital. So I grew up like this, and I'm not throwing shade at my church or my parents, but when we were having church in a school with 8 or 10, 15, 20 people, it was easy to paint the mega church people, the people with the nice buildings, the people who have some sort of structure or ecclesia, status, bishop, this, that, and it was easy to paint everybody as just out there for the money and the buildings and the status and all. It was easy until we built a building.
Right.
Because we felt it was necessary and important to what we felt the mission was. And quite frankly, we just knew that we weren't seeing the growth and we couldn't remain where we were. And so we built, now we got a budget, now we got, and everybody wants us to have it. People want to have a place to worship, want a place to bury their people, bury their loved ones and all that stuff. And so you have to have some things in place that we did not have in place when we were worshiping rent-free at West Junior High School. It was easy. And now, take it a step further, that we are a part of the Baptist Church unapologetically, and I'm a moderator. And I look at titles, and it sounds self-serving and selfish, but I look at titles different because I have one now, and I realize that the power is really within me to operate in that in an appropriate and proper way. And I talk to the church about the unity of the church. We got a men's fellowship coming up with our sub-district, okay? And in any other genre, you would look at just a bunch of old men drinking coffee and having a conversation with each other, and nobody's reaching the world and blah, 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 blah. But in my mind, I'm able to describe it, by the way, to a new generation that is not familiar, that this is an opportunity to build unity with other believers of like minds and faith, and meet some new faces and make new friends. And that's valuable. Right. That's valuable. The same way your small group in your church is valuable. So, because that's all that is. All we're doing is putting new names on old stuff.
Absolutely.
Small groups ain't nothing but old Baptist circles. If you want to be real about it, you know, small groups ain't nothing but old Kojic prayer meetings. So I'm saying he's opportunistic, and I don't want to accuse him of being opportunistic, but it's easy to say we're online only, or we're not online, or we just meet. Later on, he says we don't even have an online stream. Maybe he ain't got the money for the equipment for it. Why bash the people that do? You know what I mean? So that's
absolutely, to
me, that's what bothered me about that part of the conversation.
Well, what bothered, and I agree with you. And I did not say he said it was antiquated. I said it. I believe
right.
it.
You believe it's antiquated. I agree.
A lot of things in church are antiquated. So I think a lot of people were also upset about the audience that he said it to.
That's the wrong place to say it.
That's the wrong place to say it.
Right.
When you're on a secular
platform.
type platform, and you had an opportunity to shed light on the love and the grace of God, and you know how, because truth be told, there are people in the world who feels the way he feels and have never even been to church.
And that's a problem.
They have never even been to the church. They don't. They know what other people have said.
They know what's in movies.
They know what's in movies.
Memes.
What people have said on social media. And so it was his opportunity. He had a prime opportunity to make right that, you know, church is still the only thing that God is coming back for without a spot or wrinkle.
Listen.
It's still the only thing. And so when you have that platform, and he has that platform, whether he has an online church or sit at home church or go to church, he has that platform because the dude was just nominated for another Grammy.
Okay, let me poke at that real quick though. Can we remind ourselves that people like Tye, being a musician, a gospel artist, a singer, a producer, phenomenally talented in the church world, he's not known for building or pastoring a church.
Right, absolutely.
He's known for music. Mm-hmm. So my problem is he becomes the authority in people's minds and in those secular platforms about church, and he's not even a long-term pastor, leader, or builder of a church. And I'm not saying that's bad, like you have no opinion, your opinion doesn't matter, but I'm just saying that it's a problem. There is truth to him speaking on some of the things he said. Yes, we all know, and I guess, and I want to answer Marlon's question. I'm glad you brought it up because that's where I was going. Was there truth to him speaking on the focus being the building and not the people? I will say, to be honest, my answer is no. And I'll tell you why. Let's bring this beyond Tye, because we all know what happens when this kind of thing happens. Somebody says something that the church finds offensive. Somebody does something. Thank you, Grover. You're already ahead of my notes right here. Wasn't for the institutions, you wouldn't be where he is, and a whole lot of folk criticizing the church wouldn't be where they are.
That's it.
But I will say that whenever we have these conversations, these elementary, broad brush painting, stereotype accusations just get thrown out. Because here's what happens. Somebody says or does something offensive. Church folk get in an uproar, and then an even larger group of people start bashing the church folk for having a problem with what is said. And so everybody has started jumping and screaming about, you church folk only care about buildings. You church folk only care about money. You church folk only care about you know, titles and all that. I want to be clear with this, Marlon. I know that in the era, especially where we grew up, where churches had endeavors to build and to have something of their own and to have a place to worship, it could often feel like when people did not manage it well or administrate well, that it's just all about the building. But the fact of the matter is, nobody, I believe, sincerely believes that the church is the building, and we need to stop letting people say that. Nobody sincerely. Do we value the building? Absolutely.
Right.
Did we make an investment so that we can have a place to worship? Absolutely. And it especially pains me, and I hate to get deep like this, but especially it pains me, though there are excesses in our world that are a minute percentage of the church world, where you see people being excessive with the gold, you know, just ridiculous major cathedrals, and it's just a big debt. Again, the average church, especially in the black community, are small churches that have been scrappy since they were born, and they were often our only opportunity to have something of our own and collectivize and build. And to say that what's been built, most of these churches, most of them are not new and not fancy and not mega. Most of them are chicken dinner,
The average church in America is 200 members or less. 200 members or less.
Black church,
so y'all need to
less than
stop
100.
it. Yeah, absolutely. They need to stop that because most of us are struggling.
Nobody is getting up preaching the building. Nobody is getting up preaching that. And I'm not saying that there isn't sometimes an overemphasis.
That whole building fund joke is about over. It needs to stop.
Yeah, the whole building fund.
Yeah.
Give it to the building fund.
They had the building fund for... I don't even see them on envelopes no more.
Right. Well, we got tired of y'all. We got tired of y'all Negroes talking about it, to be honest. And so, but there is so much. And if you could do a little scrolling so I can keep up with the comments, like keep going back and forth, that'll help. That'll help.
Called out ones, exactly.
So we know we are the church. It just so happens that we actually grew up in an era, honestly, Marlon and anybody else that talks about buildings, that we were actually able to have something that we were never able to have anything before. I blew this white lady's mind at the Trumbull Historical Society when I started pointing out how many black churches in Warren were inherited from white churches that abandoned the neighborhood. And she said to me, I never knew that. And I started listing them off. Churches that inhabit churches that they didn't build and like kill people in their wallets for that. They ended up inheriting or paying a small mortgage or rent to have a church that folk abandoned the neighborhood 60 years ago. And it was a Greek Orthodox church. It was a Assembly of God church. It was a white Baptist church. And so the idea that all these preachers are out here trying to do all this, I know having one of the biggest churches, black churches in the city, and the budget, most of our budget is going towards just maintaining, taking care of basic needs, doing reasonable projects that are, I'm over here trying to do an elevator or a lobby or a staircase or something so that I can help people get into my church better because we're worried about handicap accessibility. We're worried about taking care of the elderly and people who can't get in. And by the way, and everybody wants to use our church buildings. All funerals, the same people, weddings, who say that the church is not the building, never say that when they want to call around and have a beautiful church to have a wedding in, a suitable church to have a funeral in, a place to have a baby shower in, a place to have a community meeting at, so we are, as I've always said, one of the very few land-owning, building, constructing entities, the church is, in most of our communities. And I don't think that should be frowned on. Again, are there excesses? Yes. But do we have a tendency to focus so much more on the excesses? There can be 2 preachers in our city who talk about money all day, and there could be 30 who are just serving their community. Absolutely. And we will keep talking about the whole church as if they are all those 2 preachers.
Absolutely.
And that's what we do. And that's what I'm saying when he says the church don't care about the people. Now, those are words he said. The church makes the people be for the church, and you should be for the people. That's such a broad statement. He said when his mama died.
Wow.
And again,
not online funeral.
Or in your house. Or in your house. I can have church at home. Okay. Put her in your living room like they used to do back in the day. And I mean, I'm not trying to be cynical. I'm not trying to be mean, but I'm just saying people forget so quickly that there is a function behind these things. And by the way, in the black community, I've had to explain to my white peers who don't get the demands for church funerals and church weddings like we do. They just go to the funeral home. You better not take a black body to the funeral home in most cases.
That's right. That's right.
We will hunt down an auntie, a cousin, an uncle, somebody.
They call in everybody before they have to go to the funeral home.
Everybody. So what I'm saying is you should at least be cognizant of the context in which we're in. I want to touch on one other thing, and that is his criticism, and speaking for what it is, that I wrote down these words. He said the institution of the church is whack. Mm-hmm. The way it's ran is whack. The system and structure of the church is whack. My question is, with such a broad and vague assertion, exactly how and exactly what would you do different?
Nothing. Let me tell you what they do different. They do everything the same way we do it. They just give it a different name.
The revival is a conference.
We have the song of the Lord instead of praise and worship. It's the same thing. Stop trying to make it different. You are no different than what we do.
Your church building is an edifice.
Your armor bearer is an adjutant. It's the same thing.
Your choir is a worship team.
Right. It's all the same thing.
The sermon
Stop
is a
it.
message.
The bread server.
Your call to discipleship is a prayer line.
Stop.
But
It's all
like
the
I
same
said,
thing.
when I was raised, literally, the ladies, and I couldn't have been that much. And my grandmother was not some super duper spiritual person. But at some point, I'll never forget, they had a meeting at my grandmother's house on 2nd Street, 522 2nd Street. And it was the Second Baptist Sewing Circle. It was sewing circle. And they would get together, pray a little bit, do a little devotion, and they do a little, they sit there and sew in fellowship.
Okay.
And so, 30 years later, we're saying we don't have circles and all that old fashioned. We have small groups. And that's where we really develop fellowship, and we get out of the church, where you just don't meet anybody. And, you paint this broad brush. And by the way, some of the people who talk about those things, well, the church doesn't really connect with me, or they don't give real time to answer my questions, or I don't find real connection with other believers. It's because you don't avail yourself of the opportunities that exist. There are people that probably walk in Second Baptist, and we are considered an institutional, traditional Baptist church. We will feel institutional if you never come to a men's fellowship. We will feel like an institutional church that just has the songs and the sermon, and the offering, and we go home, make some announcements, go home. If you never come to the prayer meeting where the women are prophesying and speaking and testifying, and might even speaking in tongues in there, don't tell the deacons, and they're out there going in.
Grover going to the next one. Grover at the next woman's meeting. He putting on a wig. Grover putting on a wig. He gonna be my dear.
Right. But what I'm saying is, if you should, and often there are churches that lack in a lot of things. A lot of times it's because, for whatever reason, and sometimes it's their own fault, they lack the capacity to even have those ministries and that field that we want to see. But then there are a lot of churches that are striving to have that, and the same people who criticize it are not interested in being a part of building it. And it almost feels like black community. Like you want something, but you're not willing to do the work to build it. So you'd rather go somewhere else where it's already built for you.
Right.
Or you have this other model. So again, when you talk institutions, when you talk the way it's ran, again, such a broad brush. Because on any given day, I could show you a poorly run church.
Absolutely.
I could show you one man who dominates everything, writing all the checks written to him, yada, yada, yada. And I could show you right down the street next door another church that looks and sounds exactly the same, sings the same songs, shouts the same way, old school black church, and it is well run, organized. Their finances are correct. They give opportunities.
We have financial secretaries.
But I'm saying they give opportunities to generations. Their gender, they're gender opportunistic. They're not judgmental. They're not.
There's checks and balances.
Correct.
Nobody has rule over everything.
The danger to me is the broadness of the accusations. I heard there was some shouting at Grace today. Y'all better stop stealing our thunder. I can't believe. And so institution and systems are probably synonymous, Lee. I'm glad you popped that up. And here's what I'll say. There is a danger. There is a danger in this discussion altogether. And here's the reason. When he said everything is a system now, I agree with that because I preach that. I preach that everything is a system and like almost an industry now. Law enforcement is an industry. Education is an industry. Healthcare is an industry. And so I can see the religious part being seen as an industry. But we also have to remember that it became that way because of the demands placed upon it. And I hate to be deep in scriptural, but let's be clear. The system started in Acts chapter 6. For my Bible readers out there. The systemic organization of the church started in Acts chapter 6. And almost immediately after the resurrection of Christ and the beginning of the ministry of the apostles, they looked around and said, the people we're serving have needs. There were people who were poor and hungry and widows weren't being served. And they said, we need to create our first deacon board.
I preached it at your anniversary. I preached it at your anniversary.
We need to create our first deacon board to deal with this. And they chose the people that it would be. They didn't go out amongst the people. They didn't just lay on the floor and let God drop names on their chest. They chose the men that were, and you could say, maybe they were biased. Maybe they chose their cousin. Maybe, whatever. But there was a need.
No, because they gave them specific qualities that they had to have.
Exactly. And so, again, in human nature, you cannot build upon any system or organized effort and not run into failure, fault, people who get it wrong, and people who tolerate it. by the way, and people who tolerate it and get used to standards that are outside of those qualifications, you won't find any organized effort to do any good in this world where you don't have failure.
Right.
You go into a hospital that a lot of people come out of there better than they were, and you will find some people who have been mistreated, malpracticed, whatever. You go into a courtroom, and for all the people who have complaints and say, there are a lot of people who walk away and said, I'm so glad they only gave me probation.
Thank goodness for that judge.
And thank goodness for that judge. And I'm glad the system, did what it was supposed to do. And so what I'll say is, yes, you're right. It's a system and it's an institution, but the same way we preach that everybody's human, you need to give that right back to the systems and the people that have been placed in these positions. You and I are perfect examples of this, Pastor Jeff. I was that kid that always wanted to be a preacher, and I thought I was going to be like the preacher. I was a little kid, and you really weren't, exactly. But we both came from a background where we didn't think for a million years we'd be in the spaces we are now, running these meetings. We ended up here. And a lot of times we know we're working in an imperfect system.
Absolutely.
We know that we're standing on a legacy where churches had a lot of struggles, fights, disagreements, failures. Maybe somebody did something really wrong that cast a shadow on the ministry of the church. And let me add one more thing about the institution systems. A lot of the rules and regulations that we have now, the ordinances, the bylaws, it happened because of failures that occurred that needed to be checked in the future.
Right.
There's a reason that churches have dual control and got to have 3 signers on a check. There's a reason that, a deacon have to be a minimum age or something, or there has to be at our church.
Yes,
I just made my announcement today. There's a reason there has to be a 2-week notice for a church meeting. Because in someone's human frailty or sinfulness, I might get with a conclave of people or a few loyal people or a group of folk that don't like me in the church, call a secret meeting somewhere else. And don't you dare comment on that, Grover. And then we have chaos. So again,
3 readings. You have to have 3 readings.
All that stuff.
Yeah.
But it's often said, and for those that, and I don't mean to dog Tye, but I was a younger. He's as old as I am, or maybe slightly older. But he hasn't been preaching that long, and I'd be willing to bet that, thanks be to God, at least as of now, he hasn't had to do as many institutional things as the average community church has to do. You know why we have rules about who can have funerals at our churches? It's not because we're trying to hold people out. It's because of the chaos that would ensue.
When we have people come in. Tye came in, once, like you said, he was already established as a gospel star, not as a pastor.
Right.
So he came in with the self crowd already. He started his own church. And please understand, when you start your own church, you are able to,
mold it the way you want.
Mold it the way you want to mold it.
God bless you.
There's a difference. But how, until you've proven, after a while, you're gonna start having some type of laws, some type of institution, some type of bylaws that you're gonna do too.
Let God tell me to fly down to his church and join his praise team this Sunday. I bet you he'll say we have a process.
A process.
I bet you he'll say we have a system. I bet you he'll say you have to audition. You have to at least make a covenant, a connection, a member. And that's his form, rightfully so. And I said before the show I was going to say this. And this is not the first time that people who are primarily working in the gospel artists or music industry make these kind of complaints. And there's a lot that I feel about that when it comes from those voices. Because if not for the institution and the system of the church, I wouldn't be able to afford you.
Well,
truth be told, if you had to depend, if gospel artists, especially because I hear this so much from gospel artists, Kirk gave a similar interview with Shannon Sharp recently, and others have done this. And they start talking about the church. As a gospel artist, your money, your support, your fame came from us. If you had to depend,
you preaching here
on auditoriums, secular venues solely, and there are people who get their start in the church on their way up. And truth be told, when things start to go plateau for them, they need the church later on when they can't sell out arenas anymore. They right back to doing mid-size and large churches for whatever offering we can give them or whatever rate we can agree to. And let me talk one more thing about a system. I'm going to be real bold about this one. 7-8 years into doing gospel concerts, the gospel music industry system is whacked. The way I have to call 3 and 4 different people to bring an artist to a reputable, well-resourced, organized church, and I got to go through 3 and 4.
You never get to talk to Tye himself?
I've had some great experiences and some horrific ones. But I'll tell you what, to have to go through 3 and 4 gatekeepers who have contract, and I get it. You know why you have them? To protect yourself,
right.
To maintain order, to keep your schedule.
Is that not what a writer is?
To make sure you take care of the people who support.
Is that not what a writer is? That's what the whole
I better
writer
have
is.
5 towels for you. I better have a meal. You know what? And so I know you might think this doesn't translate or connect, but it does. Because that's the big money-making arm of the church anyway.
Right.
If I don't have at least $10,000, $15,000, I can't get most of y'all that criticize the same church that come up with the money to support you, just so you can turn around and have the platform to say that those churches, that those churches are poorly or badly run. I'll read all of Sylvester's point. Y'all blessing me tonight. I'm AME. Lord, we're a system. And I know y'all a system with the system. But you love the checks and balances. Tye came to my church and said the same thing about 5 years ago. But I'm sure you meant to say it, he sure took my institution's money.
Amen.
He sure took it. And we got people here locally. We have people at the base level that will say the way the church is ran, the money, But I bet you if you want to get on as a musician, as a singer, and we could pay you, you'd take that money. And you wouldn't be letting the Lord lead you to play for free for your whole life. You'd say that's exploitation, that's out of order, that's a misuse of your gift. You know,
they say it on Facebook every day.
Every day. So I'm saying that from my perspective, the least we could do is be balanced about the opinions we have and cautious about where we share these, because it does create a house debate where it doesn't belong.
And I just believe that if he was on, I don't know, what's a gospels podcast? Who has a gospel podcast? He was on Religiously Incorrect. He would not have said it that way.
Can I say one more thing about that?
Yeah.
Because every time somebody makes that kind of accusation, thank you for saying that. Every time they say all these pastors are whack, they look at the pastor in front of them and say, but not you.
Right.
All these churches are terrible.
I ain't talking about y'all.
And if they're in front of Bishop Herron, they'll say, nah, Bishop, man, you've been doing a good job.
Talking about over on the other side of town.
And that's my thing is we always qualified in that. Again, that's the boldness of being in these other places where you're giving them what they want to hear.
Yeah.
And they're eager. They don't want to hear him saying the church is a beautiful place and you need to start going, you know. And the conversation.
And that's why they bring people
there.
on like that, though.
Huh?
They bring people on who ain't gonna say it.
And Pastor Bowie is right. He was there for his Grammy nomination, not church issues. But I'll be honest, Pastor Bowie, you can't be a church or Christian related person of stature and not get that conversation and not be prepared to know that it's coming. And there was a lot of lack of context as to exactly what is whack. And I agree. We said that at the beginning. He said the institution, the system, the way it's run. But my question is, and I almost wanted to put out like a poll. If you could create your own system of what you call church, what would it look like and be? Now, I'm sure we get a lot of questions, a lot of responses about, well, just meeting up as you feel where you can, meet in coffee shops, in homes, don't put all this money into church buildings. Don't put all this, status on structure. But what I'm saying is, but would that church you create meet the expectations you have of the church?
Guys, let me be honest. Everybody who I know have started in a driveway, started in a garage, started in a house, started online, has at some point or another got a storefront, a building of some type. Nobody stays with that.
If they had the opportunity to be big, nobody stays small.
Right. Nobody.
If you have the opportunity to grow and implement the structure that goes with it, nobody stays in their living room. When he had the opportunity to go beyond being probably a local choir leader, okay, it's just like what we see in the community. The mayor ought to do this. Okay, come be the mayor. Operate your city according to the Ohio Revised Code as you are legally obligated to do. Subject yourself to the restrictions of your office and all the other elements of government that say, because I'm a council person. I'm not Batman.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like
you ain't a vigilante.
I'm not a vigilante. But they think I am. They think I'm a vigilante, a dog whisperer. I'm an electrician that can fix street lights. All I can do is call First Energy like the rest of y'all. What do you like? I call First Energy. I'm calling my council person. I'm about to call them too. Talk to the same automated system. And what I'm saying is, And again, in order to serve you the way you desire to be served, it might sound simple, but we go back to funerals. Any pastor will tell you when somebody asks them, can I have my funeral or my loved one's funeral at your church? We have to think about all of the organizational aspects that would make that possible in an appropriate fashion. We have to do that. And that is institutional. And it's unfortunate, but I'm already seeing in our young generation what it looks like when people try to do these things for themselves. And they either go completely in left field or they become exactly what they claimed they despised in us.
All right, real quick.
Yeah.
The conversation started, he was asked about the time when being a pastor was a fad. Everybody wanted to be a pastor. Everybody wanted to be a DJ, blah, 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 this and that. And then he started off by saying how, during that time, everybody wanted to be a pastor. All they had to do was go to school, take a few tests, and then they were a pastor like they were becoming a manager.
None of them went to school, first of all.
Go ahead. That's how the conversation started. So does that give his argument some kind of merit or no?
I don't think so, because it's always been a mixture. The church is half educated, half uneducated, half seminarians and half people who have just been growing and studying. There was a fad, and anybody, again, will come into an established structure and look for ways to exploit it for their own benefit. There is no, for lack of a better term, system or established order of any industry or endeavor in our world that somebody who does not have pure intentions doesn't get involved with it and take advantage of the structure. It could be a school administrator who just wants access to funds. It can be in healthcare, you really don't care about having good bedside manners and caring for people. Most of the people, we used to joke, like folks who work in places like welfare and different places, you work with people, they're the meanest people ever, So there have always been people who take advantage of existing structures. So I don't think there's an automatic merit to his argument, except that what we said before, you cannot have anything of a broad impact and appeal and participation that does not involve unsavory elements.
And I agree with you. And I think that's another point that has been broad stroked. I know seminarians who can't shout their way out of
a paper bag.
Some
of them can't talk their way out of one. They're not even.
Yeah, they're horrible.
They're paper.
They're horrible.
Yeah.
And so for him to say that they went there, they got this. It's a whole. And then I know some people who ain't never been to seminary, who can preach the house down.
But out of the same breath, people will say all these uneducated preachers that can't talk and don't really know the Bible. So what do you want? Do you want well-studied people? Because I'm in seminary right now, and it is molding me into a more discerning and nuanced individual who knows that the words I say are going to be tested against the words that have already been established. I just can't get up and say anything and my professor say that's fine.
Right.
And to Deacon Willoughby's point, most pastors who didn't go to school and called themselves pastors was because they didn't. I'll say some of them, not most. There are some who went to seminary for that reason.
Absolutely.
Because they didn't want to work and they saw church as an easy out. I mean, why do secular artists suddenly go gospel? And why do gospel artists suddenly go secular?
More money.
Which, by the way, there was just a prophecy on a video on Tye's Instagram of somebody prophesying that he's going to be blessed and his music's going to go secular and he's going to have secular contracts. And so I'm just like, so what is it? Are we trying to be pure when it's somebody else?
But he already did that.
He's already done it. He's done Justin Timberlake's music.
Timberlake, yeah. So he's already.
So if we accuse him of being unfaithful and seeking out the world's system of using gifts for the best, and not accepting what the Lord would have him to earn by just serving the church, why crap on the church again as a whole?
Right.
Again, taking the worst examples, which we do in everything. And this is what I want to end on, Pastor Jeff.
Before you go there, because he talked a little bit in the beginning. About him being a PK. Mm-hmm. And how after he got, and once again, it's another broad stroke, how he got older. And he basically said that all these people, every PK basically goes buck wild. And I think that's broad. I think that's just, I don't think it's true. I don't think it's realistic that everybody who grew up in the church now all of a sudden is had this moment of insanity and, went to Freaknik. It just didn't happen. And I just think that's another thing.
But even to that point, to me, that speaks more to the nature of humanity than a failure of the church. It could be easily said that the child of any prominent, high-profile individual goes through a season of rediscovering, questioning everything that they were taught. All of us have, if you were the child of a mayor or a president, if you were the child of LeBron James or Michael Jordan, if you're the child of Denzel Washington, I'm sure you have to deal with the tension of sharing your parents with the world, the image they have to portray publicly, your private life, you being in a fishbowl, expectations. It's not just the church, because I've heard that a million times being a PK myself. And yes, we do have our seasons, but I would have had my season if I grew up and dad was the mayor of Warren. And I had to mind my manners in a certain way because I didn't want to embarrass. That's just like, you can't get away from that. You cannot have prominence and popularity, and I've been wanting to do a show on that for a while. You can't have the idea of high profile people, including him and his own children, and not run into those barriers. And now I think I'm the cool, understanding pastor dad, and I'm still having conversations I never thought I'd have with my daughter. And I'm like, man, I thought I was cool. I thought I was being the anti what we all said, but that's not going to change their perception. And the world has shifted so bad. I might have been the cool pastor dad if it was 94. But it's not. It's 2024.
I'm the only cool pastor dad.
It's a whole different world. Grover.
Don't tell Christian that, though.
I hate to say this, but what Grover just said is exactly why I've never reached out to Tye to do any of our Night of Hope, because I knew he wasn't coming to that one.
He ain't coming now.
But he ain't coming now. If you want to come for whatever I got, then let the Lord lead you, I guess. But you won't. You'll let the system lead you. So, okay. But what I'll say is, I think we have to be careful on two fronts. Number one, where we have these conversations and how we have these conversations. Oh my goodness. I'm glad Tatum said that. The exaggerated trauma speech. I'm sorry. We all had uncomfortable moments, unpleasant experiences, growing pains. Everything was not a mental health crisis. I'm sorry. And that has become the latest thing in the church. But we need to address that more, because I actually read an article about that, how society in general, we are putting ourselves on couches we don't need to be on sometimes.
Absolutely.
Like we have no capacity to deal.
And some of us who have really went through some trauma don't even talk about it.
Correct.
Let's just be honest. There are some of us who have really went through some real life stuff, some real life, you know what, there was times I wanted to put pills and guns to my head. And you know what I mean? We understood that God helped us out of it. If it had not been for the grace of God on our side,
correct,
where would we be?
Correct. And have gone through that, exactly. And again, I'm not denying anyone's testimony because it's real. But there is a certain fad of broadcasting, and it goes beyond being a safe voice and a good example and being transparent, which is a big word. That's necessary, certainly. Right. But again, you start to feel like they're making an industry out of it. There's some people just know that's an easy, that's an easy clip, that's an easy viral moment. And if I can't get attention for nothing else, I get attention for claiming about how I was hurt by the church, or I went through a traumatic experience, or I got a divorce, or this, that, and the other. But I want to talk about, circle back and end on this to two things, where we have these conversations. And this is a problem with the whole church, is that we so often use these platforms for everything but building the body and inviting the world to know Jesus and see the good and positive and affirming and uplifting things that are related to being a part of the body of Christ, which is the church. And while we are making a fad, and while we have so much comfort with putting down what's wrong, we are so silent about promoting what's right. Right. And there is always more that is right with God's church than what is wrong. But most of it is not promoted. Right. 35 churches in the city of Warren, black churches, had worship, loved people, helped the poor, preached a word to help somebody, gave hugs, tried their best not to leave anybody out or make anybody else feel ashamed, and nobody will ever hear about it.
Yes.
Nobody will ever hear about it. Week after week after week after week, people walk in church buildings, large and small. Yes, those buildings we talk about, and find comfort and joy and hope and love, maybe just a safe space to be. Tell that to the children. And I have them in my neighborhood who get themselves up in the morning on a Sunday morning and walk into the church. Absolutely. Because it's the safest place for them to be. And we don't broadcast it. We don't make a show out of them. We don't plaster their faces all over and say, look at this poor little kid that's abused at home who came to my church. No, but we know who we are and why we exist. And so that's my first thing is that I'm sick of musicians arguing and ranting and raving about how much they get paid and should get paid and appreciated. I'm tired of preachers arguing with each other about doctrine and putting each other down. You know, I'm tired of people just who go to church and benefit from the church talk about how everybody treated them wrong, everybody's phony, everybody's a hypocrite. Duh, we're all human. Swipe.
I swipe.
As
soon as I see it.
I see some of the most influential people, including in our own community, who could be saying, I'm a 30-year-old Christian and I want you to be one too. They're instead saying, I don't get paid enough to play the organ. What good is that? And who does it really matter to, honestly, except a small bubble of people that live in this little world that you do, where they even care or know about that? That's the thing. So the platform does matter. And we got to stop taking all our mess into the world. And we all give our opinions, about things, but it just feels like we elevate that so much more. But here's the other thing. It's so popular and easy to be anti-institutional because it just is. And anybody who is a Christian who understands that the church has its structure and has some means to it should understand that the devil hates us and will use any tool. And a part of that tool is that anti-institutional. Do we all have frustrations? Yes. You can ask the top bishop of bishops of bishops, are you frustrated with the institution and system of the church? And they'll say, yes, I wish it was different. They'll say, yes, I wish there weren't so many trying to crawl their way up to become bishops and apostles and this, that, and the other. Guys with mega churches would tell you it's not all that it appears to be. Absolutely. This is not as glamorous as it looks. And when you know a few of them, and we know a few, we've interacted with a few, they are human, tired, sick, frustrated, have, issues, and care about people just as much as anybody else. And I think we need to speak to that more. We cannot double talk. I'm not saying circle the wagons and pretend like we don't have any faults or just protect bad actors. But I am saying recognize the world in which we live and the ease. And I preach about this often, avoiding the easy answer, as Scott says, it gets a lot of likes, a lot of attention, a lot of affirmation, but it's not nuanced. It leaves out any complication, any balance, any yin and yang, any dark and light, any positive and negative conversation, pros and cons, and it's just one thrown out there stereotype. We've got to be smarter. You know why? Because the rest of the world is. And I feel like some of these conversations are just flat dumb. We're having dumb conversations, unintellectual conversations in a very intellectual world.
And if I could just add this to the gumbo, because you've already said a whole lot. You cannot change any system from the outside.
Never happens.
Never happens. You cannot change any system from making posts on Facebook and Instagram and, talking about the church from the outside. Come inside, have a talk with us. Let's sit down. Let's fellowship together. Let's talk and ask each other, or let me know what you dislike about what you call the system so much, so that we can see. So first of all, I can tell you why the system is set up that way.
Exactly.
Why we do what we do, because you really don't know. All you do is just have an attitude and post on Facebook. Or why, you asking for $500 from a church that got 20 members for you to play keyboard is not, is completely unnecessary, and you're going to make more than a pastor. And,
Yep. That's a system.
It's ridiculous.
Right.
It's ridiculous.
And so that's what we want to convey, is that nobody denies the struggles that we have. I think that there's so many people, and I count Pastor Jeff, myself as two of them, that are striving to work and make the best out of the system we're in, while we do introduce new things. And by the way, you said nobody changed from the inside. The number of times where becoming a part of like our Baptist association, I'm asked as a young pastor, what can we do different? Now, I know full well that many of those older individuals asking that question cannot reasonably implement those changes, or would be so wildly uncomfortable and thrown off if I really gave them the real answer. Right. So we do what you do in any context like this. You find ways to make incremental changes that will guide you and lead you to where you're trying to get to. Just like we say life is a step-by-step journey, just like we say faith is a step-by-step journey, so is this ministry. So is the church. And the idea that everything's just going to flip around because you ranted on Facebook, it just feels like it just becomes a self-satisfying, like self-immolating kind of a situation where, again, you just want to feel good that you said something, get some likes and views in the process, and nothing really changes.
And let me, Pastor Todd, obviously, he pastors one of the largest churches here in Warren. I pastor the largest African-American church in Steubenville. When I got there, Todd, at the end of service, they would take the offering and everybody would just walk out the door. And I'd done it for about a month. And I'm like, something just ain't right, because they didn't do a benediction. So I talked to a couple people. I said, I'm going to do a benediction. When I done the benediction, the whole church clapped.
Wow.
The whole church clapped. They was happy that we went back to the system.
Right.
They were happy that we went back to the system.
You're exactly right. And one thing I discovered at Second, coming from a very different type of church and style of church, is that it's not so much the structure, it's how you handle and implement it and utilize it for God's glory and the benefit of people. And there are a lot of people who do get it wrong, and it's unfortunate that they do. But there's a lot of people striving to get it right. And I've always said, if I ended up at a church like a Second, which is certainly a reputable and, just a wonderful legacy, that I want to do things that I probably could not have done, and we have. And it's not because of just me. It's because of the push that we've collectively made together, following the vision and saying, hey, we got these resources, let's spend it on this and that. Let's push, let's use the weight of even our name, the fact that we are an institutional church. Absolutely. We know we're going to be heard a little louder. We're going to be respected a little bit more. So let's use that as weight to get the things we want to see done, again, for the benefit of people. Half of these blessings don't even touch our church. We got out there and advocated my second year into the church for a whole playground to be built that our kids never play on. And helped the grants and advocated and worked alongside these people who made it a reality. And our kids ain't out there playing on that. So, and that story is being played out all over the world.
Absolutely.
All over the world. It'll never be on the Breakfast Club. So I want us to embrace that. I love Brother Tribbett's ministry, his energy. I hope this is the learning experience for everybody, but I'm looking forward to seeing where the next steps take us. Any last words, Pastor Jeff?
I want it all back.
Yeah.
I want it all back.
Big Mike, any last words?
Yeah, I just want to thank everybody for tuning in. And next week, I believe we're going to be talking about the trend of pastors quitting. I think that's what we're going to talk about.
I quit.
So make sure you tune in for that.
And this is quitting altogether. This ain't leaving. This is
correct.
To go somewhere. This is quitting. I'm going to work at Walmart.
I'm done.
All right. We can't wait to have that. Make sure you share this video with somebody. Ain't nothing like the devil for our church stream to go down and this to stay up the whole time. I'm telling you, man, ain't nothing like the enemy, old Slewfoot. But we had a great time tonight. I appreciate the conversation, Pastor Jeff, Big Mike. All of your comments were amazing. Let's show our love to everybody. Continue to follow our platforms, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, anywhere you listen to audio podcasts. You can catch Religiously Incorrect. Just look us up and you will find us. And make sure you come to one of our resurrection services. And with that, peace out.